Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Just ahead of Jeff Paterson, when we will talk Canuck free agent signings today. Curtis Lazar, Andrei Kuzmenko officially, Wyatt Kalynuk, Ilya Mikheyev, and Colin Delia all joining the Vancouver Canucks organization. Meanwhile, all of our guests today, it is a Wednesday, and all of our guests today, as always on a Wednesday, including Jeff Paterson, are brought to you by the Alberni Power and Marine RPM Group, located in Port Alberni. Alberni Power and Marine is one of Vancouver Island's most trusted boat dealerships, the largest Mercury Marine dealership in Canada. Their service team just won for the fourth straight year a customer satisfaction index score above the national average. Make your appointment today for the 2022 boating season at albernipowermarine.com.
Very quickly before Jeff, the Canucks just announced they've also signed forward Dakota Joshua to a 2-year contract.
So they're filling in some of those Abbotsford needs because they lost a lot of players, especially
Nick Patan we talked about.
Well, Patan, Bailey, Rempel.
Taylor's favorite.
Di Giuseppe.
I'm not familiar with Dakota.
Yeah, he's coming from the Blues organization.
Okay.
He was playing in the playing for the Springfield Thunderbirds of the AHL last year.
Okay. So somebody for Abbotsford. Let's bring in Jeff Paterson to talk about how busy the Canucks have been today from the Rink-wide podcast and Sakaris and Price. Jeff, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Yeah, my head's spinning, Donnie. I did not see a frenzy coming here in Vancouver. I thought the Canucks would nibble at the fringes, so call me a little bit surprised. I can tell you this about Dakota Joshua. He's a big dude. 6'3", 208, I think is what he's listed at. Was a former Leafs pick, but has played 42 games in the National Hockey League, all for the St. Louis Blues. And again, I think is sort of one of those tweeners, but a guy that brings a fair bit of size. And that was something that Jim Rutherford said that the Canucks wanted to do. And so Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have been busy this morning, and we'll see how much more work they have here ahead of them.
Left-handed center out of Dearborn, Michigan. Jeff, I don't know where you want to start. How about this? The acquisition of Curtis Lazar.
Yeah, I like this one, and I know you guys and others had linked Lazar to the Canucks for a while now, and it just made sense on a lot of levels. A BC boy coming home. What I like about Curtis Lazar is, he's a first-round pick, but he's never put up numbers. He was a big scorer in Edmonton in the Western Hockey League, but has never been a scorer in the National Hockey League. But I think at this stage of his career, he understands what he is. He knows his role, and he plays it. And 8 goals in Boston last year. That's not why the Canucks went out and signed him. They like this guy. He led the Boston Bruins in hits last season. He was first among all Bruins forwards in blocked shots. He's a right shot. He's a centerman. Not great in the faceoff circle, but the Canucks had to alter the composition of their fourth line. Like, with all due respect to Juho Lammikko and Matthew Highmore, they're both NHL players. Like, I think those guys can play in the NHL, but neither one of them left a mark on their opponents. They weren't physical. Highmore was disruptive with his speed, but you get Lazar. He led the Bruins in hits last year. He's got a little bit of bite to his game. And so I think the Canucks were just looking to alter the makeup and the mix of their bottom 6 forwards, essentially. The right shot center was something that was on their to-do list. They couldn't go another season without a right-handed shot to take some faceoffs along the way. So, again, this isn't me knocking Lammikko and Highmore, but if you can find guys that are better than them for essentially the same price point, to get Lazar for his 27, 28, and 29-year-old years at $1 million per, I think that's some pretty good work by the Canucks front office.
Yeah, it's interesting. Delaney's OK Tyron Langley inbox. We have a couple of people talking about how Curtis Lazar is not going to add sandpaper or grit, which Jim Rutherford has talked about, but you just mentioned he led the Bruins in hits. Yeah. We talked about him changing his game through the years, so that makes a little more sense. Ilya Mikheyev, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know how any of us are going to be able to keep up with this guy. I hope he's not as fast off the ice as he is on it. An absolute speed burner. You worry a little bit. Was last year an outlier with 21 goals? He had never come anywhere close to that in his previous 2 seasons. So he's played 3 years in the league. But this guy's got speed for days. And that was another thing that Jim Rutherford wasn't shy about telling the hockey world. He felt the Canucks needed an upgrade there. It wasn't just Jim Rutherford. Bruce Boudreau lamented the team's speed at times. Travis Green before he was let go, talked about opponents being quicker than the Vancouver Canucks on a handful of nights early last season. So speed was something that they wanted to bolster, and I think they have done that with this guy who is one of the quickest players in the National Hockey League. And with that speed, he creates a bunch of chances, but the knock had always been that maybe his feet were faster than his hands and they didn't finish on those chances. Last year, he did seem to put it all together, but keep in mind, that was a high-scoring Toronto team. Will that translate to Vancouver? Again, I'm surprised that the Canucks were able to go shopping in this price point. I just didn't think that they were going to get anybody at anything more than a $2 million AAV today. I didn't think they had the room. And so it does beg some new questions now when you start to look at their forward group with the addition of Kuzmenko and now Mikheyev and Curtis Lazar. I'm not sure that everybody that's currently on the roster and under contract is long for this organization. And that goes beyond JT Miller. I do wonder if they're going to have to just move out some bodies due to necessity. Mikheyev would move pretty close to the top of the depth chart on the left side. Podkolzin's there as well. But I think for a lot of years now, we've been saying, you want this team to get better so that players like Tanner Pearson, they slot in a little more appropriately. At this stage of his career, Tanner Pearson should probably be a third line forward on most National Hockey League teams. And you do wonder if Tanner Pearson is sort of one of the guys that gets caught in all of this, or is Tanner Pearson perhaps with one foot out the door? That's a name that they've talked about trying to free up some cap space as well. So they've been active today, and it just presents some other questions now about where do all the bodies fit on the depth chart when the dust settles here.
Well, okay, so the bulk of the money today spent up front. Okay, so, you had a tweet the other day about, teams reconstructing their blue line. Josh Manson back with the Colorado Avalanche today. So what about the Canucks blue line, Jeff? They're going to have to revamp it through trades, and I just don't see any other avenue how they're going to do it.
Yeah, and I know Jim Rutherford is on record this week saying that this may be a longer project than even they had anticipated. It's not easy to reshape a defense core in the National Hockey League. The New York Rangers have been able to do it. Colorado to a lesser degree, although Colorado is reshaping their defense, aided considerably by drafting Cale Makar and Bowen Byram. The Canucks don't have those types of pieces, obviously. So that's one of the dangers here. Is I like the Canucks forward group. I believe that Elias Paterson is going to improve and have a better season from start to finish than he did last year. Brock Besser now in a better headspace with the contract. I think there's room for him to bump his total closer to 30 goals. Podkolzin and Höglander. Now you add Mikheyev and Kuzmenko into the mix. There's a lot to like among this Canuck forward group. Yeah. And as it stands right now, 99-point JT Miller is a big part of it as well. And then you've got the blue chipper in goal and Thatcher Demko. But, is that enough to cover for a defense core that still has OEL and Tyler Myers and Luke Shen all on the wrong side of 30 now? And then, they're going to try to fill around the edges, perhaps here in free agency, or, maybe Kyle Burrows becomes more of a regular on this defense core. There are some red flags. There's no doubt. You'd love to see them find a better defense partner and a better fit for Quinn Hughes, who is going to continue to grow and develop on his own, but you'd love to see him sort of get that turbo boost with, an effective defense partner that he can lean on and grow with. And so, this is going to be the challenge. I do see some ways for improvement for the Vancouver Canucks individually, but then if they don't touch this defense core, you do wonder if that's going to be their undoing here in a season in which Bruce Boudreau obviously is coaching for his future behind the bench in the National Hockey League. I do think that this organization wants to take a step forward and be competitive, at least to make a push for the playoffs. But, again, does this look like a team that has contender written on it with that defense core as it stands right now? I think universally the answer would be no. So some good work done by the front office so far here today. But when you look at the defense, I think it just shows how much more work lies ahead of both Jim Rutherford and Patrick Elvine.
What work hasn't been done is the JT Miller trade. I'm starting to sense frustration from the fan base. But one thing I've learned about Jim Rutherford here in the last few weeks, he is a very patient man, and he is not going to deal Miller just because media and fans want him to. But in your views, Jeff, should Miller get done quickly, or are you okay getting it done before camp or somewhere around there?
I'm a little surprised that they haven't been able to move him. I mean, last year's trade deadline, I still think that teams missed the boat, that acquiring teams should have looked at JT Miller at 5.25, get him for last year's playoff run and have him for a second playoff run. But for whatever reason, there weren't takers there. Then the draft comes and goes, and that was another signpost along the way. Let's see how all this plays out. We'll see if teams are left holding, the bag with not being able to accomplish what they want here in free agency in the next couple of days. But, if JT Miller shows up at training camp, I mean, the danger there is, he's not as productive, anywhere close to as productive as he was last year, or that he gets injured. And then ultimately, if you get close to the trade deadline, the Chicago Blackhawks in complete rebuild mode, Patrick Kane could be a rental possibility. A guy like, to a lesser degree than JT Miller, but James Van Riemsdyk in Philadelphia. The market could be flooded with potential rental players, and again, that devalues this asset that you've got. So I mean, it's a game of chicken. There's no doubt about it. Jim Rutherford's been around a while. I think he recognizes all the pitfalls that are in place here, but I just worry too that if you get to the deadline, essentially you've narrowed the market to 2 or 3 teams that are truly in the hunt for that kind of rental player. And they know that they've got you over a barrel at that point, and that certainly doesn't do a whole lot for your leverage. So just if he comes back to start next season, the Vancouver Canucks still maintain a really good player, but that path, man, that is fraught with peril as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Okay, and Jeff, very, very quickly, you have been out at development camp out at UBC. Who has stood out?
I took it the first day, Donnie. The new Elias Paterson certainly looked good, big, strong, big guy, physical, the way that he was built. And so I know that he wasn't on the ice yesterday. Kind of nicked up his knee. Aiden McDonough is a guy that just looks the part of a pro already, and he should. He's 22, heading back to his final year at Northeastern. And I think for me, that's one of the things that really stood out was you've got guys like Aiden McDonough at 22 that are professional, just their frame and their size. And then you've got Jonathan Lekkerimäki. He's not even 18 yet. He is slight, there's no doubt. But again, he doesn't turn 18 until later this month. He's got some time still to fill out, but it's just the sort of the age range and where all these guys are in their careers right now. It's a pretty broad spectrum, but Aiden McDonough was certainly a guy that caught my eye, and I'm going to go back there tomorrow. They're going to scrimmage, and I think game situation lends itself to a better opportunity, I think, to evaluate. So I don't like to make broad brush proclamations after one day of summer camp where it was just drills and no game situation, but I'm curious to see what some of these guys look like in scrimmage action.
This was our last hit with you before we take a break, and undoubtedly you take a break, a well-deserved break. Jeff, thanks so much. Fabulous as always. We look forward to working with you in September.
Likewise, enjoy what's left of the summer. Hopefully the sun shines for you more than it has to this point. You guys are the best, and it's been fun being with you through this hockey season, and look forward to next year already.
Thanks, Jeff. Enjoy the summer.
You bet.